Is forward facing making us more curious about what fish are doing, and therefore we can make better management decisions, because now if we're curious about it, we want to put more effort into it.
Well, get those life vests zipped in clips, strap down those rods, and stow away those tackle bags, because we are going fishing. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Bass to Anglers podcast. I'm your host, Keith Nicewonger, and I hope this episode finds you with 5 for 25 in your live well. Special thanks to our partners who make this podcast possible. Bass Go Fishing is the official wardrobe sponsor for the Bass to Anglers podcast. Bass Go Fishing is making bass fishing fun again. Ducket Fishing, pro-driven rods, reels, and baits. Check out their website by going to ducketfishing.com. And Bait Pop, a live electronics intensifier that has to be seen to be believed. Put a little bait pop on your plastic baits, or really put it on any of your baits, and watch that bait pop on your live electronic screen. Please check out all their websites. We will drop their websites in the description of this video. I think it's down there. Maybe it's up there, but it's somewhere. Look for the websites in the description portion of this video. We have a lot of content from Redcrest 2023, and quite frankly, it's taking a long time to get through all this. But in this particular interview, I had a chance to speak with Gary Klein and Major League Fishing's Fisheries Management Director, Steve Bardin. And we talked about a new term that's being used, at least on the Major League Fishing side of the bass fishing spectrum, and that term is stewardship. But first, if you like the content we produce on this channel, hit the subscribe button. Tell them, Larry.
Get her done.
Like this video. Leave us a comment. We'd love to hear what you think about what we're doing on this channel. We are building our viewership, and your follow means a lot to us. Stewardship. It's a term that's new to me. I know what it means, but I haven't heard it used before in the bass fishing arena. It's conservation, which, of course, all bass anglers understand conservation. We know that we need to protect our resources that we enjoy so much. But stewardship is going beyond conservation. And to fully understand it well, listen to what Gary Klein and Steve Bardin have to say about it. Well, you've done it. You went out and invested in a forward-facing sonar unit so you can finally see what you've only been able to imagine in the past. You can see the fish swimming around down there. Now it's time to see your bait. Introducing Bait Pop, a forward-facing sonar intensifier. Simply rub some Bait Pop on your lure and watch that signal pop on your live electronic screen. Interested? Bait Pop contains the original fish formula and sparkle scales, so it doesn't just intensify your sonar signal, it masks your scent. It gives your bait a taste and creates a visual of scales being knocked off helpless bait fish.
Like again, a forward facing sonar guy. That's if I can have that advantage
to see an extra 10, 20 feet past 120 foot or whatever. Now, if I can see 140, that could be a game changer.
Look for the bait pop display at your favorite tackle shop or go to their website, theoriginalfishformula.com. We are at Red Crest, of course, and we have another wonderful opportunity this morning to talk to a couple of very influential people in our sport. We have with us, and I want to make sure I get your information correct here. It is Steve Bardin. He is the Major League Fishing Fishers Management Director. And of course, Gary Klein, who is responsible for a lot of the trends in our sport. Guys, welcome to the booth. Thanks for being with us today.
Yeah, Keith, thank you for having us.
I guess, Steve, I want to ask you about your responsibilities as a fisheries management director. I don't even know if that exists in other organizations, or does it?
Yeah, in other organizations, they would call it like a conservation director.
Okay.
Major League Fishing, we take a different stance because we understand that black bass species across the United States really don't need as much conservation as they do stewardship. So actually being an active user that understands the science and taking a stance that's educated. And so we kind of direct our fans to that point is we need good stewardship.
You know, I live in California. And we hear environmental all the time, but it's not the same as conservation, and it's not the same. I want to know more about the word stewardship myself.
Yeah, so stewardship as a definition would be the educated use of a resource. So we are users of fisheries, and fishermen are the number one conservationists, but we're also the ones that push the sport forward a lot. And our fisheries management division, we push the research forward. So when we talk about our Lunker DNA initiative, where we're actually using our anglers to swab the DNA of fish over 7 pounds and provide that data to the state agencies, or the fact that on the Bass Pro Tour, every single fish that's caught is logged into an iPad and there's data collected on it. We provide that to the state agencies. So when our guys are out, they're educated users of the resource and they're pushing the science forward.
Well, I mean, I know what I see with my eyes, and having been involved in fishing since, well, all my life, I feel like I have not seen anything like what Major League Fishing is doing in terms of the catch, weigh, release format. I kind of wonder if the days of live wells and boats is numbered at some point. Do we? I mean, we obviously do, because the technology needs to catch up where every regular guy like myself can have that kind of thing. But I know, Gary, you remember the CPR movement, catch, photograph, and release. That's been around with bass fishing forever, and that's one of the things I've always loved about bass fishing is we do. I mean, none of us wants to hurt a bass.
Right.
I mean, none of us wants. Those are our friends. But this stewardship is interesting to me. Now, Gary, you've gone, I think, way forward with this. You've wrapped your boat this season with this. Tell us about that.
Well, let me just start out the very beginning. And one of the reasons why I feel the need to pursue what Stephen and I are pursuing is almost like a responsibility. I've had a great opportunity with my life, with my career as a young teenager, young and dumb and stupid, living in Northern California, to pursue a career in competitive angling. And as Stephen mentioned earlier, I've been a user of the resource my entire life, from California,
Yes.
all the fisheries out there. But I've had the opportunity to travel, East Coast, West Coast, about every major lake in this country. I probably got something in my head about really key spots and good areas, and a lot of really good memories of catching, 50-pound bags of largemouth, and my biggest stringer of smallmouth, 30 plus pounds, and same thing with spotted bass. The responsibility that I'm kind of talking about is the fact that I really feel that for the young anglers and for the new anglers that we're trying to get introduced to this sport, we're not building any new reservoirs. The same water bodies that I had my experiences on are going to be the water bodies that these other anglers will have their opportunities to have their experiences on. So it's really a responsibility of us, those that are willing to put forth the effort to make fisheries enhance fisheries and ensure that they have good fish populations in them. So
Absolutely.
with that commitment comes a lot of effort, a lot of work, and we are just at the beginning stages. And yes, our Major League Fishing Catch, Weigh, Release is a really cool deal. We don't transport fish, and the thing about it is that for us, that's just a real small part of what we're trying to accomplish.
Yeah.
Our vision is much greater.
Yeah. I'm going to have you step just about one step this way. I just want to make sure Gary is completely on the, because you are, but now that's we're a little more centered. Okay, so Black Bass Stewardship Group. Who is this?
You're looking at Black Bass Stewardship Group.
Yeah, that's Gary and I. Several years ago, we got together with this idea of what we're doing with Major League Fishing in the Fisheries Management Division is the first step. But there's a lot of brands, companies, even events that we have. Take Ducket Fishing. If we wanted to do an event at Guntersville, every little fishery is unique, and you have to have an expert to come and put that kind of event together, a conservation event, maybe habitat or a research project. So what the Black Bass Stewardship Group does is works with these local brands so they can go into their local fisheries and produce a one-time event or something that lasts quite a long time.
Okay, and so that's what this group does. This group
Right.
is available. Have you worked, or are you working with anybody outside of Major League Fishing at this point? Is there anybody come to you and?
We've got a lot, Keith. A lot that's on that's being planned. So we can't push it all out right now. But
I always like these looks I get from people I interview who know something that I don't know. That know what's coming. They're very excited about it, but they just
and it's all good.
Yeah, well, no,
I mean,
I'm
it's
sure
all
it is.
good,
I'm
and that's
sure
one
it
of
is.
the really cool things is that we are truly trying to improve and want to be, the lead of improving fisheries across this country.
Yeah, I think, and again, not to get on any kind of soapbox or anything, but I really think that's what I've always liked about bass fishing is the notion of conservation, and this seems to be taking it to another level.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this, because are bass getting smarter?
That's an interesting question. Whenever we talk about like forward-facing sonar, I always laugh and I tell Gary, they're not feeling the sonar. They're not doing anything different than they've ever done. You just realize what they're actually doing.
Yeah.
And our grandparents, whenever they would take us fishing, they told us, "Be quiet in the boat. The fish can hear you. You'll spook them." Well, now we're just seeing it happen.
Yeah.
But Florida bass are slightly less aggressive to lures than northern or native largemouth bass. And what we do see is the trend of Florida genetic fish and F1 fish being transported and stocked across the country. So you are seeing a fish that learns lures over time, and that's something we understood in the private sector in the 70s and 80s, and that's just now really becoming on the forefront of the public sector.
Okay. I think that kind of fits with what I always imagined. You'd keep doing the same thing to the fish, it's going to figure something out, and then it's going to adapt.
Right.
And then it's up to you to adapt. Forward-facing electronics, I'm fascinated with. I happen to think the anglers that I talk to today, as opposed to when I started in this back in the early 2000s, I happen to think they are far more aware and understand more about what they're fishing for than the guys back then. The guys back then were brilliant, but it's just so much more information. In my limited use of forward-facing sonar, I feel like I understand what fish are doing more now than I've ever understood.
There you go.
And to be honest with you, I catch myself watching all the time and kind of forgetting to try to catch them sometimes. Because it's fascinating to watch a fish follow your bait up or stop your bait and see what they do. And it's just more learning. What I wanted to get to, because I know we have voices out there that are very much against forward-facing electronics. Is that a threat to the sport?
Well, so I'm going to pause your question and make a statement, because one of the things you just said, Keith, is you find yourself watching more.
Yeah.
Which means you're getting educated on that fish.
Absolutely.
So now, all of a sudden, you've got an interest in, well, what is that fish doing?
Yeah.
That's stewardship. That's what we're talking
Okay.
about. Is you as an angler
feel good about that.
are starting to go, oh, I've got questions. I'm learning.
Yeah.
And now you're going to seek out resources, right? You're going to try to learn more.
Absolutely.
So I would not make this leap, but is forward facing making us more curious about what fish are doing, and therefore we can make better management decisions, because now if we're curious about it, we want to put more effort into it. That's what I'm saying. It's a culture that's happening right now. And our black bass stewardship group, the fisheries management division, we feel like we're leading in the front of that because we understand what's happening. Wow. But back to your other question, is forward facing changing the sport?
I think I said, is it hurting?
I changed it to changing on purpose, Keith.
Fair enough.
So there's a lot of research. There are state agencies that are doing a lot of research on exploitation. So what that means is
exploitation. Wow.
Can I go to an area and take all those fish? And it's really important for species like crappie because we're going to consume those fish. Largemouth bass and smallmouth bass and all the black bass species have very low harvest rates. Actually, dangerously low. We need to fix that.
Right.
But the exploitation of some of those vulnerable species that we can see on the forward-facing sonar and we can catch all of them, that's what they're concerned with. For your everyday fisherman, the forward-facing sonar is going to allow you to find fish quicker. But then you have to have the skill to make the accurate cast. Right. You have to present that bait, and then you have to get that fish to actually engage. That's a totally different skill, and that elevates you next level.
Yeah, let me just add to that, too, on this forward-facing imaging. The one thing in this sport that will never change, ever, I don't care what you're fishing out of or where, is you must tie a lure on the end of your line and make a cast in order to catch a fish.
That's for sure.
Now, all this technology that we're talking about may change the lure that you tie on the end of your line, and it also may change where you throw that lure you tie on the end of your line. But all that is up to the angler. And that will never change in this sport, forever.
And the fish will learn, and they will, because I believe that a lot of the fish that are being caught on using live forward-facing sonar are fish that haven't seen lures, because they're offshore, and it seems to me like a new population.
Well, yeah, what you're saying is true, and really, let's just take it back a few years, and it wasn't too long ago that as an angler that fish, type of lake and time of year, we all experienced awesome fishing in the spring, post-spawn conditions, and then lakes that would kick out 25-pound bags now are kicking out 10 pounds.
Yep.
Catching 11-pound stringers, and guys always said, where do those fish go? Well, a suspended fish is usually one of the hardest fish to catch because they're not relating to what us as anglers are used to fishing. But what happened? The Alabama rig came on the scene. And what the Alabama rig did is it gave the anglers a tool to catch suspended fish that, those fish that used to go offshore and would rest for months totally unmolested, now are getting caught. So, yeah, these fish are being conditioned. Now, the Alabama rig is still a great tool, but it's like anything else. Just because you have an Alabama rig tied on the end of your line, just like I've got forward-facing sonar, doesn't mean you're going to catch fish. And I will tell you, as a user, a dedicated user, and of course, I'm old school, and I run Lowrance, and I'm on a learning curve of trying to figure out, and I have the really good stuff. So I see really good out in the water. But folks, it's still a challenge to figure out how to change your techniques, your lure presentation, to catch what you think may be a bass. And the only way you can identify a species is time on the water and the experience. Those are carp or those are catfish or something like that. And you can only do that by being out there on the water. Right. So the forward-facing sonar, I love it because it gets more people involved, and my electronics are my underwater eyes. Well, I love to fish targets I can see with my eyes because they're clear and they're crisp. But for years, all that I had access to was being able to see vertical.
Yeah.
Now I can see on my side scan, and most important, now I can see in front or, beyond the boat.
Yeah.
And it's just the comment you made is so perfect because now you're starting to get intrigued by what it is you're seeing. And one thing I will say about forward-facing sonar is that has literally changed what I thought I knew about how fish swim.
Yes. Yeah. And whether or not they stay in one place, right? Do you believe in magic? You want the power, control, and casting distance of a long rod for your deep cranks, A-rigs, and glide baits, but you hate the inconvenience of storing them. Small rod lockers, 8-foot ceilings, and narrow walkways can make a long rod a real disaster. Ducket Fishing has got you covered. The Micro Magic series is unlike any rod series on the market today. Comfort grip, Fuji reel seats, micro guides for better casting, advanced sense-a-touch blanks, and a unique blank-to-blank telescoping feature that will allow your rod to fit anywhere a normal-sized rod can go. All this at a price that won't break your bank. There's no such thing as a magic bait, but there is such thing as a magic fishing rod. Micro Magic by Ducket Fishing. Pro-driven. Getting back to your Black Bass Stewardship Program, again, you've made this a title sponsor. This is your title sponsor this year, right? So that, to me, is a really, I mean, talk about an angler stepping up to the plate. That's pretty impressive. What's the future look like for the sport? Are we is it in danger, or is it are we doing well or not well enough, or what would you say?
Yeah, I think Gary mentioned it at the beginning. You know, we're not building new reservoirs, and we have an increased angler use, and they're getting better. I mean, the younger anglers are a lot better, and there's more of them. So we have a limited resource, right? We actually build reservoirs at a rate lower today than we did in 1890. So it is one of those things where with that limited resource, you have to be aware of how to manage them correctly. Now, the cool part is we have things like the Friends of Reservoirs, where they're doing habitat projects throughout the United States. Habitat has become really important for Black Bass Stewardship Group. We partnered with Mossback Fish Habitat, and we are engaged in habitat work throughout the country. We have a lot of genetic work where programs like the Share Lunker program in Texas, things like our Lunker Bass Initiative, we're really looking at genetics and how do we better stock fish to improve
With those genetics.
with the right genetics, to improve the growth. We also have a lot of work that's being done on water quality. That's, it's boring stuff, but the fish live in water, and they have to have excellent water quality. So we have a lot of really great scientists. The fun part is all the reservoirs are kind of aging at the same rate. They have very similar issues. So we're able to, although every lake is managed differently, we're able to use some of the same principles throughout, and we're really learning right now. I would say the next 20 years are a really fun time in fisheries management as a professional, as a biologist, because it's the challenge part. But whenever those solutions are created, we create longevity.
Gary, I know you spent a lot of time on Lake Havasu. I don't know when the last time you were at Lake Havasu, but they took on a very aggressive management.
Yes.
And that lake is phenomenal.
But look what it did to Lake Havasu. When I was on the West Coast all the time, competed on Havasu, literally a 13-pound bag was like huge.
Yeah.
Huge.
I used to call it Lake Havaclu.
Yeah.
Because I just, I know.
Exactly.
It is
but
alive.
the last experience I had was in the last BASS event that was on Lake Havasu. I made the championship round. I think I finished, in the top 5 or whatever. But my time on that water during practice, what was so intriguing to me is all of the habitat in all of the bays.
Yeah.
That didn't happen in a day or a weekend.
No.
That has been ongoing for years. But look at Havasu today. Look at the population, and that's one thing that, in order to have a population of fish, you have to have habitat and food. You have to have those two. Yeah. And what's happened with them is they created all of that artificial habitat in the bays, in the coves, throughout the lake. I mean, all the way to the river, all the way down to the Billy Williams Arm on the lower end. And it just blew me away. I mean, in those areas, how those fish related to that habitat was pretty special.
Well, and the smallmouth have taken on to that lake. That's probably the strongest species in the lake right now. And they're not small. They're
giants.
They are.
But look at the sunfish population.
Yeah.
That's the most intriguing thing to me.
Yeah.
World record sunfish.
Yeah.
I mean, you catch a 5-pound sunfish, that's huge. Huge.
Yeah, that is. You're absolutely right. And I see similar things happening on Lake Mojave. I don't know when the last time you were on Lake Mojave, but Lake Mojave is now a tremendous fishery.
Yeah, and it's basically dominated by smallmouth.
Yep.
It's got some nice largemouth in it, but yeah, I was wanting to go to the U.S. Open last year so bad. I knew it was going to be Mojave, a completely different lake than in the past. My schedule just would not allow me to attend that, but I followed it day by day. And of course, I'm really good friends with Josh. Talking to him, he's like, dude, all he did is just fish for smallmouth the way he does up north.
Right. I mean, so that's very exciting. That whole river chain is very important to me. Of course, Lake Mead we know is in really bad. It's not good. It needs water. Hopefully, with the melt this year, they'll get the water they need. But I don't see any reason why Mead couldn't become what Havasu has been and what Mojave is now becoming. Just through that kind of management.
Well, exactly. And I think, again, I'm on a learning curve because you and I have been around them for about 12 years now, 13 years. What intrigued me about Stephen before I even met him is his writings. And my daughters, who are really, pretty much they're my social media arm, kept telling me about Stephen Bardin and what he's talking about with fisheries. And when I started listening to what he had to say, I knew I had to meet him.
Yeah.
And when I met him, I thought, holy cow, this kid here's got a vision in fisheries management that's huge. It's like my vision and Boyd's vision with Major League Fishing. It was beyond the norm.
Yeah.
And every day, every hour that I travel with him and talk to him, our conversations are just amazing. So I'm on a learning curve also because I've been an angler all my life.
Yep.
I'm not a biologist. I'm a user. I've been a user, but I have a tremendous amount of experience being that user. So as far as a team, we're very well, positioned.
Yes.
I've really felt that. But I really appreciate his burning desire to create something that's never been done before with fisheries management across this country because, dude, that's one cool thing about fishing. There's no right way, there's no wrong way. It should be your way. And if your way works for you, then keep fishing. If not, you have all the resources to go back and study it, make changes. But it's a very family-orientated sport. And when families are together fishing, they're making memories that they will never forget. And I don't care if they're catching carp or catching sunfish. I mean, it's that experience. And, my girls now are grown up, but they're like my little tomboys. I mean, they fish, they hunt. And I remember I look back as a father, and those are the memories that you share.
Absolutely. Guys, I really appreciate you coming by today and being part of this, Steve. It's very good to meet you. Sir. Gary, every time
thank you.
Every time we talk, I just feel like light bulbs go off in my head,
now you know how I feel around him.
It's very good. That's very good. Very good stuff. Thank you guys very much.
Thank you.
Basco Fishing Apparel now has built-in SPF 50 technology to not only keep you cool and dry, but to also help your skin stay safe from the elements while you're out there on the water. All that in colors and styles that are sure to up your game. Check out the new colors and styles by going to their website, bassfishing.com, and make bass fishing fun again. It's good to know we have people like Gary Klein and Steve Bardin working behind the scenes to protect this sport that we all enjoy. Live electronics haters, did you hear what they said about live electronics? It helps protect the resources? Yeah, we said it. It helps protect the resources. The more we can learn about fish behavior, the more we can do to protect the most valuable resource that we have, which is the fish. I bet you didn't expect to hear them say that. Live electronics leads to education and understanding of what the fish do. And when we understand what the fish do, we can do more to protect them. Brilliant. Well, that's going to do it for this episode of the Bass Wranglers Podcast. Once again, thanks for being with us. Until next time, keep both hands on the wheel. Keep those live vests zipped and clipped. Be safe. Subscribe to this channel.
Get her done.
And we'll talk to you again very soon.